Okay, so let's get started. So today let's see how we can, install Docker. In the last session, we discussed about few Docker basics, like how Docker creates the containers, difference between virtual machine, physical server, and the containers, and how containers are better than virtual machines, correct? So the key differences are virtual machine, each and every virtual machine contains, a full copy of the operating system. Whereas since there is a full copy of the operating system in a virtual machine, it takes more time to create a VM, start a VM, stop the VM, and it's heavy because there is a full copy of the operating system, and then it consumes a lot of hardware resources. Whereas containers, on other hand, virtualizes the hardware as well as the kernel also. That means the operating system almost. Since there is no full copy of the operating system in each and every container, it's lightweight. You can create the container very quickly. In fact, within less than a second, you can create the container. You can stop container very easily, very quickly, right? So these are the key differences between virtualization and then containerization. Before we explore all Docker commands, let's install it first, okay? Before that, see this. Supported platforms. Docker is supported on these Linux platforms, Ubuntu, RHEL, CentOS, meaning when I say support, you can implement Docker, you can create containers on these hosts on top of these missions. Docker also works on other Linux flavors, but they say it is best supported on these Linux missions. In the sense, if you are creating the container on other Linux platforms, and if you are stuck with something, for example, right? So you need some quick fix from Docker, or you need some support. They don't support. They say we support only on these three. Docker is also supported on Windows. That means you can create Windows containers on top of Windows machines. And then Docker is also supported on OS 10, that is Mac. You can create containers on top of Mac operating system also. And Docker is also supported in all cloud, contemporary cloud platforms like Amazon EC2, Rackspace Cloud, GCP, Azure, DigitalOcean, Alibaba Cloud, Oracle Cloud, and so on. That means you can create a VM in any cloud, and on those VMs, on top of those VMs, you can create containers, right? To create container, we need one full copy of the operating system, right? Correct? Okay. And I also explained in the last class that on top of Windows host, we can create Linux containers, correct? How is that possible? Because on top of Windows, we cannot create Linux containers technically, right? Because we need at least one full copy of the operating system so that Docker can virtualize the kernel, right? That is operating system. So there's a workaround. What was that? If you install Docker on Windows or Mac also, okay? Mac OS is also different, right? Mac is not Linux. It's Linux kind of thing, but it's not Linux. Mac has its own kernel and operating system. That's their own proprietary operating system. So if you want to create containers, Linux containers on top of Windows or Windows or Mac, if you want to create Linux containers on top of Windows or Mac, right? When you install Docker, Docker comes with a tiny kernel. So even though you don't have a full copy of the operating system, full copy of the kernel on Windows and Mac, since Docker contains a tiny version of kernel, so Docker uses that kernel, and then using that you can create Linux containers. Docker containers or Docker works on only 64-bit architecture missions. That means your CPU processor should be 64-bit. These days, nobody uses 32-bit. And Docker, requires minimum 3.8 version of the kernel. Minimum 3.8 version of the kernel. That means this is Linux, right? A full copy of it's a VM, right? It has a full copy of the operating system. right? You can create containers on top of VM or physical machines. VM also has a full copyright. So this is a VM. You can create a lot of containers on this. So for Docker, right, you need minimum 3.8 version of the kernel. How do you check kernel version? Uname hyphen a, right? So I have 6.11 version of the kernel. So almost, these days, 3.8 is very minimal, and it's very bold. So you don't need to actually, worry about this, because you have definitely, you'll have definitely 3 dot, I mean, more than, sorry, you definitely will have greater kernel versions than 3.8 in almost all, recent Linux servers. But in case, right, if you are working on legacy system, I want you to check the requirements. Because why I have written this specifically, because I said, hardly 40-50% of the companies have adopted DevOps, right? Most of the cases, you will be, right, you will be implementing Docker and Kubernetes from scratch. So you need to know you need to be very clear with the requirements. So that's the reason I have written this, right? So if you are implementing containerization from scratch, make sure that you have one of these 3 Linux machines, 64-bit, and then kernel version should be 3.8. Kernel means operating system, right? So this Ubuntu, right? So this Ubuntu operating system, right? So the base code of the operating system is called as kernel, right? So kernel means it's a software, right? So again, there will be releases for that software. So this is it. If you want to print only the kernel version, you can use -r, kernel, K-E-R-R. Remember that, okay? Kernel, K-E-R. R is the option. And uname -a will also tell you whether it's a 64-bit or 32-bit. Okay. So if you see 32 here, that means it's a 32-bit. So that's how you check the requirements. And these are the 2 commands using which you can check the kernel. And if you want to check the operating system, what is the command using which you can check the operating system version? Cat etc os-release. So there'll be a file called os-release under etc, right? You just check the content of that. Okay. Print the content of this particular file. So that file will have your OS version. It's a 24.10 Ubuntu. Okay. So that's how you check operating system. Or you can also use lsb underscore release -a. Okay. If I don't use -a, what happens? It's not printing anything. -a means all. Okay. Remember that way. Ubuntu 24.10. So that's how the 24.10 Ubuntu is also called as oracular. Oracular means 24.10. So for every Ubuntu release, they'll give some name. Okay. So of course there'll be the version number, but just to remember, the operating system very easily, they'll also give a code name, right? So normal name, a name, oracular. Oracular means 24.110. So that's how you check the operating system and the kernel version. Nothing great about it, right? Just in case, we get a chance to implement Docker from scratch, remember this requirements. Clear with this? Any questions? Mm-hmm.
No, Nagesh.
Good. Okay, let's proceed with the installation. Okay. So if you want to install Docker, you need to download this particular file first. Earlier, so they used to have, a lot of commands. We had to run multiple commands to install Docker, and then it was kind of a messy. Okay. So they consolidated all those commands and they wrote this shell script. So you just need to download this shell script and then you need to execute that. So that shell script will install Docker for you very easily. So let's see. Okay, let's install Docker here. So just open the browser and then say install Docker for Ubuntu. Okay, install Docker for Ubuntu. Take the first link, go down. You see left side Ubuntu. There are different ways to install. but this is the convenient approach. Okay, this is the command. So the kernel will download the given file. Okay. Just copy this. Okay, kernel. So kernel command downloads this file, this one. Okay. Once you download, just give execute permissions. If you don't have execute permissions for shell script always ends with .sh. So you cannot execute it. Okay. So if you have to give the execution permissions, right? Plus X means execute. And then just execute. You know how to run any shell script, right? /. That's all. So I'll press Control C. Okay, because Docker is already installed and then it's latest in my mission. Okay. In your case, this will take a couple of seconds, minutes, and then you should see Docker install. So once that command is successful, then just type Docker version. Okay. Docker version to see the version of Docker that you are using, 28.1. So this command is successful means Docker is installed successfully. Okay. That's how we check that the Docker is installed in a machine or not. Done. Once you install Docker, right, you can execute commands like this, right? For example, I'm creating a container. Don't worry too much about this now. Docker run -it, -FN. Okay, I'll just say ubuntu /bin/bash. This will create the container. See how quickly I'm able to create a container. A mission, it's a mission. It's like your virtual mission. It's like your physical mission. See the beauty of Docker, right? And you want to check the IP address, hostname -i 1702. See how quickly you're able to create a container. Forget about, this one, container creation. So this is how we use the Docker command, right? Correct. But in your case, first time when you run Docker, you need to prefix Docker with sudo, because see, Docker creates the container, right? So Docker interacts, operating system, right? Docker has to interfere and then interact with your operating system. That means you need to have a you need to run Docker command as a root user. You need to run Docker command as a root user because it works at a a OS level. So without sudo, by default, okay, by default, without sudo you cannot run Docker, but I'm able to run it because I have a special configuration. So once the installation is complete, right, just configure this, a simple one. Okay. Once you install Docker using that shell script, it will create a group automatically for you called Docker. In Linux machines, we'll be having group concept, right? This is a group name. So once you install Docker, installation automatically will create a group called Docker in your machine. And if you want to execute Docker command without sudo always, you have to add your username to that group. For example, my username is Ram. Okay. So if your username is part of this group, you can execute Docker without using sudo. Simple. Very simple, right? There's a group called Docker. You need to add your user to that group. If the user is available in the group, then you can execute. Then you get permissions to execute Docker command without sudo. It is that simple. So you should know how to add user to the group, correct? You don't need to create the group, right? Installation will create the group automatically. You just need to add your username, whatever user you logged in with, to that group. That's all. And if you want to do that, use this command. Usermod, okay, -az. User mod is the command. Hyphen A means add. Remember that way. G for group. G immediately group name you have to give. And then your username. What is my username? Vbox user. Why I'm telling this? Because sometimes we get confused, right? Whether we have to give user first or group first, right? There's a confusion, right? So that's the reason I'm particularly telling you. G means group, right? So immediately you have to give the group name. Okay, it's not the username. And user mod again, you have to execute with sudo. Okay. Then group is the user is added to the group. That's how you add user to the group. So once your username is part of the group, you can execute docker command without sudo. How do you check now whether the user is part of the group? Can somebody tell me where Linux stores the group information? Groups.
You can give ID also. ID username.
ID?
Username.
ID vbox user.
Group
And
code.
cat etc group. Cat
Cat
etc
etc
group.
group.
Correct. That's correct.
Cat etc group. Grep -i username. But
Yeah.
ID will give entire group details which are having that particular user.
Right. So ID will give you the whether the user exists or not. This is for checking user exists or not, right? So this is the user ID, and for every user there will be a group also with the same name, with the same username. So it is giving that, but it is not giving you the all groups. No, it is giving. You're right. This one. Is this the one? I'm not sure.
No,
Okay.
this ID, this command will give you the details of this ID is a part of which all groups. So these are the groups. You can see GCOS here. Uh, Groups equals to. Just move a little more. Yeah, from here these are the groups where this group this user is a part of.
Yeah, that's a clear explanation. So this is user ID. Okay, I always use this just to check if the user exists or not, but this is a new learning.
No.
Okay.
This is the
Okay.
just command to check the group details as well.
Yeah. Okay, good, done. So this is the user ID and group ID of that particular user, and then user is part of this one, ADM, blah, blah, blah. The user is also part of Docker group. Okay. Yeah, this command is sufficient, but otherwise the other one, you can also check like this. Okay.
Cat, no need to worry.
I just want to show that entire file to other people. So Linux stores group information here. Okay, etc group. So we need to log in as a root. Okay, etc group. See, these are all the groups present in this mission. These are all the group. See here, there is a group called Docker, right? And VBox user is part of the group. If there are two users, it will show you two users with the colon separated. Group ID 984. Remember this. And then VBox user is part of this group. This is a group ID. See, this command is showing the same thing, right? Group ID 984. That means this group is user is part of the group. That's how we check. ID command is sufficient, or you can also do this, right? Just grep for it. Instead of opening the file, you can also check this. Grep, okay, for your username, vbox user. How do you search for a word in a file? Grep command, right? You know that? Not user, you can directly give the group here. Docker. So Docker group is there in this particular file, right? See, Docker group is there, and VBugs user is part of the group. So that's how you check if the user is added to the group or not. And if you want to add the user to the group, this is the command we use. User mod add to this group and then username. So once you execute this command, then you need to log out and log in, okay? Or I need to restart your machine. Then only it will come in effect. That's how you configure Docker command to be executed without sudo. Right? Adding sudo always is not convenient, right? So this configuration will help you to run Docker without using sudo. Clear with this installation? So once the installation is done, just configure this. Okay, add that user to the group. Then, for some reason, if you want to uninstall Docker, this is the command apt-get purge, or you can use remove. Okay, Docker CE, Docker CECLI, container D. We have installed Docker using Docker that shell script, right? That shell script installs Docker. This is Docker command interface. Okay, and then there is something called container D. I'll explain that later to you. Okay, in Kubernetes class. So this is the command to. Using this command, you can uninstall Docker. Leave it, you will understand about this later. Done. That's about the installation, okay? Let me just remove the existing things so that I can show you everything from scratch. Don't worry about these commands for now. Don't worry about this command. Okay, done. So I don't have any existing stuff, okay? It's a clean slate. Let's create the container, okay? So this is how the container creation happens, right? This is your hardware, operating system, and then you have Docker installation. You have RAM, CPU, hard disk drive, operating system. On top of operating system, you need to install Docker. We know how to install Docker. We just installed it. And this is your Docker Hub. In Docker Hub, we store the images. There is CentOS image, there is Ubuntu image, and then lot of hundreds, thousands of images. More about Docker Hub later. This is my host, correct? Host mission. So in the host, I run this command. If I want to create a container, right? This is the command, right? Docker run -it and then Ubuntu. Docker run -it Ubuntu /bin/bash. This is optional, okay? That's how I create a container. So this is my VM, right? I have full copy of the OS here. Kernel is there. Docker run -it, and then I want to create a Ubuntu container /bin/bash. That's the command. Okay. So the moment you execute this command, what happens? So the moment you execute Docker run, this is what happens. Visualize, okay? it will create a separate, user space. That means it has to create a mission on top of this mission's hardware, right? On top of this VM, right? So, and it has to isolate. That means, see, if you create 5 containers will be running on top of this mission, right? And 5 containers are 5 different missions, 5 different missions. So it has to, make sure that, it's a separate mission, right? So it will create a kind of, isolated area like this. And then it will virtualize the hardware, RAM, CPU. So same RAM, CPU, hard disk, it will separate to the container. And then here we have operating system, right? Full copy of the operating system. So operating system is what? Kernel plus users, sorry, kernel plus programs, utilities, blah, blah, all the stuff, right? Okay. So then it will take the kernel code from this particular OS, host, and then it will virtualize. So you got the kernel here. What else is required to farm operating system? Kernel is common for Ubuntu, right? CentOS and RHEL and any other Linux, correct? So we have got the kernel. What else is required? What will decide whether what is that which decides whether what operating system it is? This one, right? If you have Ubuntu stuff, that will become Ubuntu flavor of Linux. If you now have CentOS related files, programs, utilities, features, that will become CentOS. If you have RHEL related stuff here, kernel plus that, it will become RHEL. That's how you decide the flavor, correct? So Docker run will virtualize the hardware, right? And then kernel capabilities it will give to the container. And then we have given the Ubuntu, right? So this is called as image. We call it the base image or stock image, simply image. So it downloads the image in this mission, okay. And then it will extract here. So you'll get Ubuntu file system, Ubuntu related file system, Ubuntu features like security features, whatever, right? They have comes here. Then it will become Ubuntu OS. That's how Docker constructs operating system. So you got hardware OS, and then you can install, you can run any application here. For example, you can run your Gamut cart application here, right? It's like a mission. It's like a server now. That's how it works. Once the content is created, I want to work with the container. It's a separate mission, right? It's a separate mission. I want to, have a terminal from this. So that's what I'm telling here. IT means give me an interactive terminal. That's a meaning, okay? IT, interactive terminal. So this particular option will give you the terminal from this mission. So when it gives you terminal, I means attach input. That means it will give you the terminal, and if you run some commands, that means you are giving input, right? So you have to attach that, std in. There is something called if you want to use that the OS terms, right? We call it stdin. That means standard input. That means you'll have to attach that standard input or leave it. Just remember this way, okay? You will enter the command, right? That means the terminal has to take your input, correct? So you have to attach input. Output will be automatically attached. So I means attach input, T for terminal. So that means IT means simply it will give you an interactive terminal. Interactive terminal means you can type something, it will take the input, it will give the output. Input, output is attached, IT. And okay, it's a terminal. What, shell is there? Terminal has a CSS, C shell, K shell, bash, what it is. So I'm telling Docker to give bash shell for give me interactive terminal with bash. So you will get a terminal with bash. Sorry. Okay. I said this is optional. Even if you don't give bash, it will by default give you bash only. So this is optional. You don't need to give. Since we are learning, I'm explicitly mentioning it. So basically, this particular command, okay, creates the container. It will give you a terminal. Let's observe these things step by step. I don't have any images in this mission. I don't have any pre-downloaded Docker images. I don't have any containers. Okay, let's see. So the moment you run Docker and what will happen, it'll download the image, right? It'll create the container, it'll download the image, and then it'll like start that image in the container. So it becomes Ubuntu container, correct? See this. Unable to find image locally. That means it has to download this, right? It says, I don't see existing Ubuntu image in this mission. So it is downloading first time, okay? And then this image is stored now. Next time when you create another container, it will not download again because image is already present, right? If it is not present, then only it will download. And then, correct? So it created the container now, and this IT will give you interactive terminal. So this is a terminal. And you have got a brand new server mission now. And this is the IP address. What is the host IP address? ifconfig. This is my host IP address. So host is different, right? And this mission is different now. That's how Docker creates the container. And I said it will download the image, right? If you want to list the images, we use the command called Docker images. How do you list the images of your images present in your host? Docker images. See? And there should be a container, right? How do you list number of containers that you have on this on a particular host? I may be having multiple containers, right? So how do you list all containers on a mission? Docker ps-a. If you want to list all containers, Docker ps-a is the command. If you want to list images, Docker images. Now, let's observe this first. So it has created a container. Docker has created a container. And how do you identify a container? For example, I create the container now, right? I do some work there, right? I install some Jenkins or whatever. It's just a mission, right? So you can use it for anything, right? For running your application, for installing Jenkins, Kubernetes, you can do anything. It's like any other mission. So I did my work. I'm done with my work. I shut it down. It's like a mission, right? I shut down it. Tomorrow I want to again log into it. How do you log in? How do you log in it? How do you identify a container? Using its name. When Docker creates a container, by default, it gives a name for it. Here it is Practical Goldberg. That's a default name, okay? Some random name it will assign. If you want to create a container with your own name, you can do that as well. We'll look into that later. So container has a name. Container has a numerical ID also. Remember, the container can be identified using its ID or name. You want to log into this container, for example, right? You can use its name. You want to start that container. Docker start, you can give the container ID or you can give the name. You want to delete the container. You want to destroy that container. You want to destroy the mission. You can say Docker remove ID, Docker remove name. So for us, for humans, names are easy to remember, correct? But you can also use the ID. So Docker ps-a will give you the name of the containers. Okay, we'll list all containers. I have only one now. Okay, it lists all containers. It'll show you the name, ID, from which image this container is created. This one. You see here? A6DB. A6DB. BD, whatever. BD. Okay. So once the container is created, it'll use that ID as a host name. What is the name of my mission? This mission? Host name. A mission will have IP address and then a name, correct? You can connect to a mission using its IP or host name, right? So this is the name of my mission. I can change if I want, right? Vitality server or Jenkins server or whatever. I can give. It's just a name for your mission. It's like this, right? You have a home, right? We'll be having, house number. Remembering that house with number is very difficult, right? For freshers, okay? Remembering that house is very, with names is very difficult. Remembering 100 missions with their IPs is very difficult. Okay, 172.17.02, I'm running Jenkins there. 03, I'm running, Kubernetes there. So remembering it is very difficult, right? That's the reason there is something called host name concept. Like our homes have the names, right? X, Y, G, Nilaya, that, this and all the stuff, correct? So if there is a name for home, you can remember it very easily. So that's the reason we have a host name concept, right? Remember that way. So I can give, okay, since assume that I'm running my so Kubernetes here. I can say I'll name it as Kubernetes server. So when you want to log into that, just say SSH and then username at Kubernetes server. You can log in into the machine using its name or IP address. So when it creates the container, by default, it will give the container ID as its host name. Okay, it is as its name. If you want, you can change it. I'll show that to you later. Okay. So container has an ID, right? Docker ps-a command will give you from which image container is being created and how old the container is, created 1 minute ago, 1 day ago, and things like that. Up means the container is up and running. See, this is up and running. This is alive, right? That means it is up means it is in running mode. You can also shut down this container. If you want to shut down the container, exit. Now the container has been shut down. Now you see here, Docker ps-a. It says exited. Earlier it was up. Up means it is running. Exited means the mission, the container, a server is in shutdown mode. Okay, it was created 6 minutes ago. And at the time of creating the container, you have given /bin/bash docker run -it ubuntu, that's the image name, /bin/bash. So that's the meaning of docker ps-a command. If you want to list all the images, Docker images. So we created this container using Ubuntu, right? Docker run -it Ubuntu, right? So Ubuntu image is downloaded. This is the one. Image also has an ID. Image has a name. This is the name, Ubuntu name, and then image also has an ID. Image versions. This is the latest. I'm using Ubuntu latest one. Assume that you want to create a container with Ubuntu 20.04. So after Ubuntu, you have to give Ubuntu :20.04. So it will download Ubuntu 20.04 and then it will get Ubuntu 20.04 for you, 22.04 and so on. If you don't give anything, it will consider that as a latest. We'll play with the versions later. This is the latest image created 2 weeks ago, created or updated 2 weeks ago. See the size of the image, 101 MB versus 35 GB operating system image. So it extracts this image here, right? So only 100 MB code is sitting here. If it's a VM hardware, right, you need to have the full copy of the operating system, right, which is 5 GB almost. Having 5 GB code, having 100 GB code physically sitting matters, correct? So that's the concept of Docker. Now listing all containers and then listing all images. Let me create another container. I want to get another container. I run the same command. Each time you run Docker run, it will get a new container. If you want to get a new container, what command is Docker run? Okay. So each time you execute Docker run command, it will get a new container. It will get another container now. 2 containers. List Observe, is it downloading the image? No, because Ubuntu image is already, no, it exists already, right? So let's see how many containers we have. 2 containers. 1, 2. This is the previous one. This is the second. Compassionate feastal. So usually it will take, scientist name here. Okay, and then it'll add some, funny word. So that's how it randomly gives a name. If you want to create a container with your own name, you can do that. I'll give that option later. 2 containers I have. One is running up, one is in shutdown state. If I want to stop the container, exit. Now I have 2 containers. That means 2 missions. Both missions are in shutdown state. See, it's like this, right? You open your virtual machine. Once you are done with your work, what do? You shut it down, correct? Like here, like this, shutdown. So that means my laptop has 2 VMs in shutdown mode. So this mission has 2 containers in shutdown mode. If you want, you can again start those missions. You can log in into that. We'll look into those commands. Okay, very soon. 2 containers. I want to create CentOS container. What do? CentOS. How it works? It'll, virtualize the hardware. It'll be in the kernel from here, and then we are giving CentOS. Right? It'll become CentOS, then it'll become CentOS. It is that simple. Likewise, you can create any number of containers. CentOS. CentOS image is not there, right? So it is downloading. Docker run -it CentOS.
I think send-os. Right?
No, the image is CentOS only. Unable to find. It says there is no image with this name, CentOS. It's a CentOS one, right? What happened is I used that name many times. Maybe they would have changed. I don't know. CentOS. Let me go to Docker Hub. Okay, it downloads the image from the Docker Hub only, right? Correct. So this is how you go to Docker Hub. Dockerhub.com. Initially, you have to create your account. Okay, sign up. So that's how you create your account there. I already have an account.
You can give send-os a colon latest. I should have tried once.
If you don't give colon latest, it will take the latest by default. It has to.
No, give
Or
try once.
sorry.
Try once.
See, I'm not giving CentOS colon latest, right? It is by default treating it as CentOS colon latest only.
Okay.
So since you asked,
Got it.
so let me search. So I'm into Docker Hub now, right? And let me check. If you want to search for the images, this is how you search for the images. Okay. CentOS. CentOS. Maybe latest is not there. If I give 7, let's see what happens.
When you use sudo command before doctor.
Sudo is not required because we configured that, right? We have added the group to the, we have added the user to the group. So don't need to give sudo.
Or anything update install update I think this combination not updated install minus update.
Your voice is not audible, Sanatan. Sorry. Can you speak a little louder? Come closer to the mic.
I think we should use update command. You update something if the center is not updated here.
Yeah, yum update is to install the packages inside the CentOS because we don't have a CentOS machine itself. So yum update is to update the packages inside the CentOS. Okay, so 7 is working, right? Say, now you see it created another container, nifty surf. Okay. And see this is a CentOS mission. You want to check that? Cat etc OS secondaries CentOS Linux. So whatever image you give, right? Whatever image you give, it will download that image from the Docker Hub, and then it will create the container. So I have 2 Ubuntu containers, 1 CentOS. Why is it not downloading latest? I cannot copy paste from there. Not a bit. Okay. Okay. So that's happening because there is no support. Okay. Meaning, say this. creating a container, right? Let's talk about Ubuntu first. Ubuntu. But what version of Ubuntu? Are we giving the version? No, right? If you want to give the version for your image, we give that version after colon 22.04, for example, right? That's how we mention the version of the Ubuntu, right? If I don't give, I said it will consider it as latest, like this. Okay, done. So Ubuntu is working, right? Because Ubuntu colon latest version is there. It is there in the Docker. I'll show you. I'm searching for Ubuntu. This is Ubuntu. Okay, click on that. So when you just say Ubuntu here, it is actually, the meaning is Ubuntu colon latest, correct? So it will go to the Docker Hub. This is the Docker Hub. So this is Ubuntu, right? You see here Ubuntu latest here, latest. So you're giving Ubuntu colon latest. Ubuntu colon latest means what is that? It will be 24.04. So there is an image with the latest tag. This is called the tag, okay? Ubuntu colon 22.04. We call that 22.04 as tag. Ubuntu colon 22.04. We call this the tag or version, okay? So in Docker Hub, right, when you say Ubuntu, it means Ubuntu colon latest, right? If you don't give anything, it will take it as Ubuntu colon latest. And Ubuntu colon latest is there. See here, latest means it will be this. You can say Ubuntu colon 22.04, sorry, Ubuntu colon 24.04 or Ubuntu colon latest or just Ubuntu. If you just say Ubuntu latest, you can give the latest or version. So it is there for Ubuntu. For CentOS, see this. Click on this. Go to tags, okay, versions. Now we see there is something called CentOS 7.9. CentOS 7, if you give, it will download. There is an image. CentOS colon 7.9. CentOS colon 7 is there. CentOS colon latest is not there. So there is no image with latest. That means that's their wish, right? RHEL, Red Hat company. So they store their image. CentOS belongs to them, right? So they, for some reason, they have not given an image with latest. So they probably know they want their users to specifically mention the version specifically. Maybe they are very specific about that. That's the reason there is no image. That's why when I say CentOS here, CentOS, it says there is no image with latest. But if I say 7 is there. It's just that they're not maintaining, but it used to work before. That's what ChatGPT says, okay? So there is no image, they're not maintaining it. They're not saving, they're not keeping that image with the latest there. So they're specific about that. That's what ChatGPT told, okay? Whatever, image is not there means it is not there in the Docker app, so unable to find it. Leave it. So, but we're able to create CentOS with 7, okay? That's how you create the containers with different images. See the CentOS image size, Docker images. We have two images, right? One is Ubuntu, right? We also downloaded CentOS image. CentOS image is there. Size is 301 MB. CentOS. Ubuntu is just 101. That's how you create the container. I'll create another container, okay? Say for example, Ubuntu 22.04. It is downloading 22 image. Earlier we were having latest, correct? Latest is already there, but 22 is not there. So it is downloading that. Docker images. See, you have Ubuntu latest, right? Ubuntu 22 image, CentOS image. So This is the container recently we created, and this has Ubuntu. This is created from 22.04. CentOS 7 operating system is there. Latest Ubuntu, that means 24.04 is there. So we have different containers with different operating systems. Confident Nash is the container name. I think Nash belongs to maths, right? Nash theory or something is there. Done.
Sir, we only can run one container at a time, because whenever we are adding one, others are like exit.
What is it?
Like we can only run one container at a time.
You can run any number of containers. I understood where you're coming from. One second, let me bring the adapter. Charging is very less. Probably this is what your question is, Rajat. For example, right? I create a container here. I create a container. So I'm creating a container, right? Say Ubuntu, right? If I want to create another container, I have to exit, right? That's what is the question, right, Rajat?
Yes.
So you open another tab. Run again another command. Ubuntu /bin/bash. Does that mean that each time I create a container, I have to open the new terminal? This is, for container 1, container 2? No. Okay. So we are not there yet. 1 second.
So this is the same container you have opened in both the tabs.
Both are different. So I create a container, right? Docker run creates one container, correct? This is the container ID 877. This is container 1. Okay. Right. And then this is again another container. It's a separate mission. Host name -i. This is 03. So I'll tell you. The question is, I created a container, right? If I say exit, I can come out. But that exit is stopping the container, correct? Exit is stopping the container and then coming out of the terminal. So that's the reason we are thinking that we can create one container in one terminal. So the question is, right, how do you come out of the container terminal without stopping it? That's the thing, right? If we can come out of the terminal without stopping it, we can use the same terminal, right? For that, there is a shortcut. Control-Shift-P. No. That Control-D, Control-P. See this. So the problem is, if I say exit, it will stop the container. And I can use this terminal to create another container, right? But, I can come out with exit, but that is stopping the container. So if you want to come out of the terminal without stopping it, press Control, hold it, Control PQ. Now we are out of the container terminal, and then container is still running. Proof. So this is still running, and what is that container ID? B70. See, B70. We came out of the terminal. We came out of the container terminal without stopping it. So you create a container, okay? Now, right? You want to, run some other commands. Control PQ. That means it will push that container in a background mode without stopping it. The machine is still running. 4E9. 4E9. It is still running. Okay, Rajat. So that's how you come out of the container terminal without stopping the mission, without stopping it. And you can use it. And if this was your question.
Yes,
We
sir.
can,
Yes.
we can create, if we can create only one container at a time. You cannot create multiple containers. You cannot say, I want to put 4 containers. No. So each time you need a new container, you have to run this command. I think the previous one was your question, right, Raja? Clear?
Nageshwara, we don't have any chance to not go to that particular container. So command should be executed with the same mission.
Come again?
No, you should not go to container mode. So if you are running Docker run IT Ubuntu, so it is directly going to new container, right?
It is creating a new container. Yeah.
So it is creating, but again it is going to container.
Yeah, correct.
Which we are creating. So we don't have any option to do not go to that particular container.
We can do that. See this, everybody? So the question is, if I say I want to create a container, this is the command I use. I get the terminal. But see, I don't want the terminal from that mission. I just want to have a mission running. You understand the point? That's how in real time we, create the containers. Say, this is your Jenkins server or whatever. So this is your production, say, for example. In production, right, you want 100 containers. You want 100 missions for running your Gamut cart. That means here you have 100 containers. Load balancer is there. Load balancer name is say flipkart.com. So when users type flipkart.com, it will come to load balancer, and then it will send different requests to different missions. So you have 100 missions running your Flipkart application. So here you just need to create 100 containers, right? When you create containers, do you need terminal from all this? No, right? You need to have 100 missions running. That's all correct. That's the question. Can I create the container without getting the terminal? I'm not interested in working with that container. So if you want to do that, just use this command. -d demand mode or detach mode. Detach mode means you don't have terminal attached. Detach mode. See this. Container is created. What is the container? ID 7ECE. 7ECE. Okay. It is showing you only short one. Okay. This is the actual ID, but here it is not. It's showing the shorter one. Okay. So this is one E9DD0. E9DD0. Container is created and it is running. It is just that you don't have terminal. If you want to again work with the container, you can attach the terminal. I'm going to use the commands. I want to work with that. I'll just say attach a terminal for me. For which container? Jolly. Jolly. See, I'm in that container now. I want to come out. Control PQ. Again, I want to log into that mission. Attach.
So
I'm
this attach command is working this similar to like SSH kind of a thing, right? Like we are.
almost, yes, correct. Correct.
It is not using that protocol, but yeah, this is the same thing. Which okay.
Yeah, it's not using SSH protocol, but it is kind of similar. Control PQ. Okay. Control PQ. Sorry. Control PQ. Okay, so See how many containers we have now. Okay. Jolly, nostalgic, exciting, blah, blah, and so on. All these containers are, see how many missions you are able to create. 3, 6, 9, 10, 10 containers. That means on this Linux mission, on top of this Linux mission, you are able to create 10 containers. 10. Can you create 10 virtual machines on your Windows? If you create 10 virtual machines on your Windows, what will happen? Your Windows will be dead slow, correct?
Exactly.
Because 10 virtual machines, 10 operating system copies. Virtual machines are heavy. Containers are lightweight. See, with less hardware, you are able to create, multiple machines, run, multiple applications. You are able to utilize the hardware, efficiently. See the difference. So containerization is very powerful. Okay. Let me show you some commands, okay, before you ask the questions. Since whatever questions you asked, all those commands are there in plan.
Naishara, sorry, just you can attach on any one of the containers.
Okay. Okay.
Start first one.
Let's see. Okay.
Please.
Let's see.
Yeah. Okay.
You know how, okay, you know how to create the container, right? Docker and -it and things like that. Okay, let me create a container again. So this will create a container. Okay. And it will give you the terminal. Done. Now I want to use this particular mission for Jenkins. So I can install Jenkins, Tomcat, and then I'll use that IP address as a Jenkins server.
Please execute the hostname command. Just hostname.
Hostname. Hostname is by default your container ID.
What about that name?
Which name?
End of the PS-A, it is giving one name, right? Suppose a Jolly something.
This is host name. That is container name. This one. This is container name.
So how to check container name in the host?
Here.
Is there any command? Yeah.
No, you cannot check. So from host, you can check how many containers you have. Inside the container, you cannot see that container name is to identify from host, to identify the mission from host. So this one host name is to identify the container itself, right? To connect from other missions.
Okay, this is just ID, not for name. Container ID.
This is host name. For example, if you want to connect to this mission, one second. So if you want to connect to this is the mission, right? Container, right? Is a mission. If you want to connect to this mission, you can use its IP address or you can use its host name.
So in that attach command, we can't use the host name. We have to use the container name, right?
Container name. See the host. Okay, remember this way. Container name is to identify the container from the host mission. Okay, this is the actual network. For example, okay, this mission has. So this is my mission name, right? Correct. ifconfig. What is the IP address of this mission? This one 10.02.55 10.02.15, right? So any other missions can connect to this Linux mission using its host name or using its IP address. You assume that you want to SSH to this mission from other mission. What do you do? SSH this IP address or SSH this IP address or SSH this name. So this is the network level thing. And what is this one? This one is to identify the container. That means from host, I want to log into that container. From host only. From other missions, you cannot log into this container with the container name. No, this is not a network related thing. This is Docker stuff. Clear with that? Other missions cannot connect to this mission using container name. No. Right? So the container has the host name and IP address, right? Other missions can connect to this using this container host name. This is not host name. This is just a container name. So why the container name is required? If the container name is not there, right? If it is not there, how do I delete it? For example, I want to remove the container from host. So I say romantic, for example, right? So this name is to identify the container from the host. And if any other machines want to connect to this, they can use this particular host name, right, or IP address.
No, you are removing container like a Docker RM and then container name or host name.
Container name. Container name. Okay. From host to refer to identify the containers from host, use container names. This one. Okay. To connect to the container, right, from other machines, use its a host name or IP address. This is limited. See, other machines cannot understand the container name. They understand. Okay. So this is a mission, right? Mission 1, mission 2. If you want to connect mission 1 to mission 2, right? Each and every mission will have something called interface. You do know interface? Interface.
Yes.
You call it NIC, network interface card. It can be a hardware, it can be a software. Okay. If this interface, it's a software or it's a hardware. If this interface is not there in a mission, other missions cannot connect to this. So two missions connect to each other in the network using this interface only. Interface, network interface. So every mission will be having this in network interface card. Okay. This is interface, right? Interface will have an IP address. You can also, instead of IP, you can also give a name for it. I'll just call it a name. This is host name. Host name. So you can connect to this mission using its IP or host name, right? For example, I want to connect to this from this mission. What do? SSH, some username at the rate. You can use IP address here or host name, correct? Host name. So this IP address host name is related to network. So if any other mission wants to connect to this container, they can connect to this container using its IP or using its host name. That's equal to this. If so assume that this is virtual machine 1, this is virtual machine 2. So if virtual machine 1 wants to connect to virtual machine 2, it can connect to that using its IP address or host name. That is this.
Anyway, that Docker name, that is unique, right? Unique for every container, not
One
for same.
One second. Correct. So this is equal to that. What is this then? This is at a Docker level. That means from host, I want to remove that. From host, I want to remove the container. So container should have a name, right? So I cannot delete the container using its IP address, using its, the host name. No, that's a network related thing. This is the communication between the host and then Docker. This is Docker stuff. They would have developed, maybe, probably, we don't know, right? You ask Docker, hello Docker team, why can't you allow me to, identify the container with its actual IP address, with its host name, right? What if there is a no host name? Host name is optional, right? If you want to remove the Docker, if you want to remove the container with the IP, with its IP address, remembering IP address is very difficult. And host name, there may not be host name, right? There will be some random host name. What if host name is not set? So that's the reason they would have given some name for the container so that you can identify that container from the host. Questions? Follow-up questions?
Again, there is no use of names. So instead of using while removing, instead of using name, we can use container ID, right? So it is the same like as a host name. Then what is the necessary of name? So Docker only will understand the name, not for container ID.
Docker can understand the container ID also. For example, if you want to,
Then we can use container ID, right? Why necessary of name?
Docker, sorry.
Actually, we are thinking from that conventional way of logging in. So this is new. So that is why these questions are like my questions and Nagendra's questions are related to that only.
Got it. Yeah. See this. Let me try to clarify. Okay. So Docker run. Okay. Docker remove, and then I'm removing this. If I want to remove this, I can also use this ID. So you say that names are not required because I can use ID, correct, Nagendra?
Yes, correct.
But remembering IDs is not very easy, right? For example, I have a container. I'm running Tomcat.
That it is not easy, but that is the host name, right? We should use host name.
What if I set a different host name for this? So I have this romantic Dhawan, right? So this is the host name, right? This is default one. What if I want to, again, host name cannot be a number, right? You cannot remember host name. Ideally, you will not use number as a host name, right? Nobody, tries to, loves to remember the numbers, right? We won't be, using this host name. We will change it because host name cannot be a number, right? Like, so it is there. Since you have not allocated, it is there. But see, how do you identify this? If you want to identify this mission, can you identify? Okay, Docker, SSH username at. Can you remember this number? No, right?
That is what I am saying. Instead of remembering this one, host name should be a name. If you hit the command host name, it should come as a name, not for numbers. Why it is coming numbers?
So I think
One
we
second.
can change,
Sorry,
right? That
one
we
second.
can change.
Sorry, 1 second. So you're expecting Docker to give this romantic Dhawan as a host name, right?
Host name, yes.
I don't want to have, what is this romantic Dhawan? That's not related to me at all. I want to have a proper name for this, saying Jenkins server,
Yes, correct.
Kubernetes server. So that's the reason you cannot expect Docker to give the same name for this, right? Because we don't want, right?
Again, name is unique. So next we are going to create any other Docker container. It is not accepting the same name, correct, right?
Yeah, ID is also unique. So it is not giving the name, but it is not giving. See, they could have given.
Sorry, Nageshwarao, remembering this ID as a host name, it is difficult. So host name is a name that should be sufficient to remember, right?
Correct.
Then why you are using host name as a container ID? We can use the name.
Nagendra,
One second. No, sorry. 1 second. So I'll take the best. Okay. You are asking, let's, ask, we are questioning Docker, okay? Not to me.
So
let's take in that way. So you are questioning Docker that instead of making this host name as ID, why can't you give this name as host name, correct?
yes.
Okay. Do you want to
simply I will say I am in home.
No,
Someone is asking where is your home. I should not say my number, my house number. I should say my
correct.
house name.
Correct. See, this was the reason, right? Okay, they could have given no problem. They will give romantic Dhawan for this year, romantic Dhawan. But I'm telling you, it's very rarely you want to have this name. Okay, in real time, when you create a mission, right, you don't want to have that name. This names you don't want to have. You will definitely give a separate name for this, my Tomcat server, Ansible server, and so on. That is the reason they're not considering this name as a host name, because 99% you will not have this name here for your real time mission. That's the reason they may not be giving it. Simple.
I will create my own name instead
Give
of
that.
giving their name.
I'll show you that. That's the reason there is an option for that. Yeah, you're right now. Name. I'll give it as. I'll take other opinion also once again. See, I'm giving a name for my container. I'm setting up the host name series. Now, host name. See, now people can call it as a Tomcat server. We will never want this name to be a host name. No, because we will definitely change it. Because this is a random name, right? This is a random name. So this is just for temporary purpose, they are giving that name. Probably these are the reasons why they're not considering, right, the container name as host name by default. It is ID they are giving, because there should be something ID they are giving. They could have given name also, and then they may ask you, to change it. Anyway, you will change it, but that's their preference.
Yeah, again, now it is came to my knowledge. So now how in real environment we are creating the Docker with this command, or normally with container ID we are creating.
With this command only. We will definitely use this.
Okay, that is what my question.
Yeah.
Understood now.
And we are not there. We are not there yet. So that command is it's the first class, right? We are at the very beginning. 1 second. Sorry. I got something else. Hyphen name.
I was searching in Python class notes.txt. You need to change, I guess.
Yeah. Good news. I'm trying to start Python batch very soon. Text edit. Where I'm testing that. Okay, I'll go here. 1 second. We're not there yet. Okay, see hyphen name. See, I'll discuss that here. Nagendra?
Yeah.
Okay. And that hyphen D command Nagendra asked, right? Hyphen D.
Yes.
Hyphen D. Since you already have the real-time experience, you want to know all those things, right? Why it is
Yes,
not
because that nomenclature,
comes.
right.
Because when you say,
That's-
for example, Rajat asked, right? So I can create container only in one terminal. What if I want to come out of it, and do some other work? There is a shortcut, right? All those things are there, but yeah, I'm happy that you have options.
So, like, in short, we have to start thinking in a containerized way when we are analyzing this, because we have the conventional and traditional way of thinking of handling other VMs and
Yeah,
other LPARs servers. So, yeah, okay.
exactly. And Nazir, you wanted to, sorry, I.
No, yeah, everything is sorted now. So
Yeah, everything is sorted.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
but it don't seems to be very messy
It
and
seems
easily. We should just segregate
segregate what?
like we need to understand basic thing here, like Docker and CentOS, Docker and Ubuntu. What are the nomenclatures we are using? It should stick to that,
Correct.
so it will not be having any confusion. Yeah, we
See,
can.
after a couple of classes, right, once you spend some time, you'll get the clarity. But yeah, okay.
Sir, could you just, sorry to interrupt, could you just
Okay.
once again run that Docker PSA once again on the host?
PSF, yeah.
So the named one that you create, the Docker, that is not comes here, right?
Which one?
The one,
See, it is there. Tomcat server.
okay, but still that container ID will be there. There is
Container
no, just the visibility purpose just comes there.
So that host name is this. That is to connect. That's at the network level. Tomcat server. Okay. And container name also I've given the same thing.
So, one last question. In real time, like when we get the chance to change the host name by just running the command host name and then the name which we desire. So
Yes.
those command will work here, like in the non-NIC environment, non-NIC environment also.
No. So there is one more. Maybe
So
in the
apart from that name command, apart from that name prompt, after getting into OS, then we can change the name or not.
yeah.
Suppose
So
I forgot this hyphen name while running the command, and then I'm sitting in the server, I want to change the host name.
okay. See this. So this is the container name, right? This is the
Correct.
host name using which you can connect to this. So you can, I'll double check. Okay, in ChatGPT, you can allocate the host name only at the time of creating it. First thing, once you allocate host name, you cannot change it.
Okay.
Seems inconvenient, right? But that's how they have designed it. If you ask the same question to them, they will reply to you like this. Okay. Why are you not allowing me to change the host name, right, of the existing containers? They say, right, probably they may have to restructure a lot of things. They say, when you can create another container within less than 1 second, don't bother about this. That's what they say for many of your questions. We can get another container within less than a second, right? So don't worry about this. Don't try to fix the things there. Just throw it out. So delete it if you don't want.
No, but having another container is altogether a different OS, right? Altogether a different server itself. So, like that must be running some, DBs or any applications, right, on top of that OS. So if I want to get into that particular OS system only, that's why the questions are arising. Like I know that in fraction of seconds we can get another container, but what if in real time scenario, in production environment, the applications and DBs are running on it, and I want to use that container only. So is it really useful in that kind of an environment, or it is just used for testing or something?
No, it's containers are used in production heavily. Like I
Yeah,
mentioned.
okay. So that answers my question.
Yeah,
So this is
exactly.
only for these things. Yeah, I get it. I get
Like
it.
I mentioned, Google search is completely running on containers. Gmail, Google file system, Netflix. So kind of large scale applications are running on containers. So containers are for the production, not for just testing. It's just like just like proper machine, like the VM.
Right. So that again invites the second question. So if it is meant for, it is created for the production heavy environment also, and some applications and DBs are running. So what is the point creating another container if I want to, if I want to change something like silly thing like a name, host name. Those environments will have a set of nomenclature, right, which we all have to follow in real time environment, right?
Correct.
So that's what. Okay. Anyway,
Anyway, let me try
we'll
to answer that. Sure.
we'll
So,
dig more into it.
so this is the philosophy of container. They say, create something quickly, do your work, destroy your container, then and there itself. Don't live in the legacy system. That's a philosophy of container. Create a mission quickly, do your work, throw it away. That's the philosophy.
So, but these big organizations are running, like Gmail and everything are running on containers, and so they are not destroying it, right? They are running on a particular container. A container is a OS itself, right? Is a full-fledged OS, right?
Okay, I'll give you a few answers for that. I'll try to give the justifications, okay, based on my understanding.
Means they are not doing the job and killing it, right? They are just holding it, right? They're holding it. They're running their applications on it.
Yeah, so that's how they answer. See, for example, you go to Flipkart, okay? Flipkart. So we have 100 servers, right? Obviously, in production, we won't be having only one database, right? We'll be having multiple database. Correct? We'll be having high availability, at least we'll be having 2, 3, or 4, correct? So if you go to Flipkart, you have 100 database servers. You have 100 login servers. You have 100 search servers. Okay. Assume that you have 100 database servers, right? You want to change something. We don't go and then make the change in the container. Instead, you know what we do? We delete the containers and then we create new containers with new stuff. That's what we do. Okay. And it is very easy because container creation is very quick, right? And so they say, if you want to change something, don't change the machine. Instead, you create a new containers. And for creating this new containers, there will be image. We create this database container from the database image. This is our own image, DB image. So when image is there, right, don't try to fix the problem. Don't try to change anything, right? Instead, you have to remove it, create a new one from this image. Within less than a second, you'll get a brand new one. I made one statement, right? Containers are meant to, do some work and then quickly, do your work and then destroy it. See this. For example, I'll give an example how it helps. Development team, you have some code, you build the code, correct? And then here you will understand all these things, when I explain the image concept. Okay. So once you complete Docker, you will be able to come to the conclusions. So in Docker world, what we do, we have the code, we get the var file. This is the var file, right? You know what we do? We create our own image. This image will be having Tomcat and say JDK. Okay, var file and then command. So whatever is required for us to run this code, right? All the dependencies, prerequisites are in this image. You think image as zip file. So you have a zip file. Inside the zip file, you have image and you have JDK, Tomcat, and everything. Okay. So from this image, I create the container. So within less than 1 second, see, I'm able to create the container now. Within less than a second, I'm able to create a mission. What is there in this? Your code is there. Tomcat, JDK, blah, 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 blah. How much time it took for us to set up a Tomcat server in Maven class? We have to install JDK, Tomcat, deploy the code, all the stuff, right? Now with Docker, see what's happening? You put everything in the image. From the image, you create a container. You get everything within less than a second. Within less than a second, you get a mission, with hundreds of things, code and dependencies. Done. So it's very quick, right? So what I do, if you have Docker, what people do, right? There is a new code, right? We take it. We have the new code here. We create the environment. We do our testing here today. Tomorrow, what we do? We do our testing. We tear it down. Then tomorrow I'll come. I take the new code. I'll create this image with the new code. I'll create a fresh environment again. I don't use existing stuff. That is a policy. That's a philosophy they have, right? So use it, tear it down, create a fresh one, because there's an advantage. When you can create something within less than a second, why are you using the existing stuff? Now the question comes, what is the problem I face if I have the existing stuff, right? Why should I create environment every time again and again? Assume that you are living in virtual machine era, right? These are all the VMs. 100 VMs you have. In VMs, what do you do? If you have the VMs, right? 100 VMs, you have the code. Today you get the new code, you deploy the code here. Okay. Again, you take some other code, again you deploy the code. So what is changing here? Only code every day, correct? It's been 2 years now. It's been 2 years you are using. When you have this 100 existing missions, every day you're deploying the code into 100 missions. It's been 2 years now. Now you assume in 2 years what people would have done this. So if you look into these missions after 2 years, you will see JDK 10, JDK 11, JDK 12, 17, Tomcat version 1, version 2, version 3, right? You name any installations, all versions of installations will be there. Yeah, 2 years, right? Testers go here, for example, they change something, right? And then they don't clean up, right? Likewise, you will see a lot of configuration changes here. Now, to one day, you take the new code, you deploy it. Application is not working. What happens now? Developer comes and then tries to troubleshoot it. He logs in this mission. He'll find JDK 11, 12, 17, Tomcat 7, 8, 9, 10, and then blah, blah, lot of redundant stuff. Troubleshooting becomes nightmare because you have everything. You don't know which JDK is loaded, blah, blah, all the stuff. Why? Because you have a legacy mission. You have a mission, right? Created, it's a 2 years old. A lot of stuff is there. Troubleshooting becomes very difficult. So it may take whole day for you to just troubleshoot the issue. Your whole day is wasted. Developers whole day, testers whole day, and things like that. If you have Docker, I take the new code. I have the image now, right? Assume that I have image. Assume that I have containers now. Containers. Okay, same issue. Okay, something is not working. No, developer will come here. He will try to troubleshoot. If he can fix the issue within 1 minute, for example, okay. If he is unable to fix the machine in 1 minute, what he'll do? I don't want to troubleshoot. Create a new environment for me. See, you are able to create this environment probably within a minute. When you can have an environment within less than a minute, why do you want to spend 3-4 hours of time? So they say containers are meant for doing something. Tear it down. Every day you come, you create a fresh environment. So you don't have to bother about redundant stuff. You don't have to bother about the configurational issues, blah, blah, all the stuff. That is the philosophy container follows. So come back to our previous thing, right? With that, if you go to Flipkart, right, you have say 100 missions, right? 1 to 100 missions. You have 100 database missions, 100, say, search missions, 100 login missions. I want to change something in all 100 database missions, right? They'll say, don't change it because, okay, you allow change, say, for example, I'll go and change something. Only this person know what has been changed, correct? Tomorrow, if you want to create a new server, do you remember that there is a change here? No. So this suggests not to change anything here because only this person know all the trade secrets, what is required. But if this person is not there in the company, some other person comes, this person doesn't know that this was there and then this is required in the new mission. That means what? This guy has that secret. So they don't like to change anything in the mission. Instead, what do they do? If you want some change in 100 DB missions, you create an image. You change that in the image. And then if you want to change, delete one, create a new one. Delete another one, create a new one. Because you don't want to delete all 100 databases down. So delete one, create a new one. So this prefer to create a new one instead of fixing something or modifying something. Now there is an image, right? So if that secret is here in the image, anybody can go and then check. So this image has your application, software plus all dependencies, prerequisites, and everything. So with this concept, because of these advantages, they don't allow the change in the mission directly. Instead, they say go directly, right? Change whatever you want in the image. Don't change anything here. So if something is not working, tear it down, create a new one. Because container creation is very fast. And you said, it's a database, right? I don't want to, delete it. You'll be having backup servers. You will be having 100. If you delete one, no problem, right? So you delete 5 first. You still have 95. Bring 5 new, 5 new. Then delete 5 old. Again, bring 5 new. That's how we, go and then roll out the new changes. We call it as a rolling update fashion. So there are fixes for that. See, that's a Docker way. First thing, these are all the reasons. These are the advantages they give. First thing. Second thing, maybe some technology limitation, correct? So when Docker is giving, us such a great features, saving a lot of hardware, right? So as I think Docker as a software, right? As an as a software, they may be having some limitations, right? For example, what is the limitation here? So once you create the container, you cannot change the host name. That's a limitation they are giving us. Now we question why can't I change? Maybe they can give, but they may not be able to create Docker kind of the great software, right? They may be having some limitations from the software side. So we have to follow their rules when we are getting advantages. So kind of that stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I don't expect you to understand 100%, but at least if you can feel justified 30-40%, I'm fine, because you don't know the Docker. Let's complete the Docker. If you want, let's do this. You hold this question, note down these questions somewhere.
Actually,
Correct.
we are we are from the OS background only, right? So,
Yes.
so the questions are according to that
Correct.
real-time OS environments.
Yeah.
How we can apply those things into container, right? Okay, that's what it's getting clear.
I know it's a real pain, right? For example, I have a host name, right? I want to change it, right? That's a very common thing we do. and they don't allow. Now we ask Docker, why you are not allowing, right? When I'm giving you, that such features, you bear with me is what they say. And they give the simple example. When you can create in 1 second, why you're asking me that question? Because I'm giving such a great technology features to you. Bear with me with few things. Kind of things.
Got it.
Okay, I'm also curious to know. Let me first check. Can we change the host name for existing containers? I don't think we can change it. If there's
Sir,
an
I
option,
can I add on something? Like as you said, like image will be created, so we can create a new image for that Docker, and we can create a new Docker and rename it.
exactly.
That's
Exactly. So you have the image, right? When you create a new container, okay, from this image, at the time of creating the container, we can change the host name, right? So now you change the host name, whatever you want, new one. Or if it is some installation change, you put that in the image that comes in the new container automatically. Can we change host name? I think I'm right, but if there is an option to change the host name, I'm fine. But as far as I know, you cannot change it. If there is an option to change, everybody is happy. Can we change host name for existing containers? In Docker, you cannot change the host name of running container directly. However, there are few ways to work around this depending on your goals. Set the host,
same thing.
yeah, set the goal name at the time when starting the container. Okay, this is the host name. Why can't you change it after? You cannot change, but there may be some workaround, but strictly not advisable because they're not supporting it. Docker containers are isolated environments. That isolated means I told right, it creates a separate boundary for you, that isolation. So when you create a container, it'll create a boundary like this. It'll isolate that mission, isolation environment. And their host name is defined at container creation. It's backed into the container's network namespace, okay, host name, and not dynamically changeable like on traditionally VM. They say that host name, whatever you give, will act as your so that host name, whatever you give, right? So that will be connected to your network, right? I told you this one. So this is the network, right? So this is the network, right? So they say whatever host name you give, that will be connected to this network is what they say. But why cannot be changed? Again, there is no clarity there.
Yeah, as long as the moment we proceed further, it will get clear to us
And we change
as we dig more into it.
host name. I'm just curious. See, it is telling that you cannot change, but the message is not clear. Why? Exact reason. What could be the reason? I'll leave in 2-3 minutes.
Okay.
If somebody wants to do, you can leave. I'm not covering anything new. I'll just give the summary. When running a container, Docker gives a network name. Okay, that means IP address. It will give a host name, but the host name is hard coded. The Docker does not expose a way to change it after the point. You cannot change it. It's like setting your name when you are born. It's like setting your name when you are born. This is what they say. You cannot change it. Docker's case, it sets a container, birth, runtime. Okay, simple analogy. When you run Docker container, Docker uses Linux startup. See, if you see here, Docker plays at a host, at a operating system level, right? Operating system level to give all those benefits. So if you see, we don't understand this. Docker uses Linux set hostname system call. This is like C code, okay? At startup. After that, the kernel, locks the hostname, right? And changing it later require a low system calls, reinitializing the names. See, they would have given, but it's very difficult is what now you say.
Nasir, can you go on mute?
Sorry. Coming in, coming in.
No, nothing. I think someone was speaking on mute.
Yeah. Okay, so that's their order. Let's follow. Okay, but that is how they designed the system, right? And there are some reasons for that also, right? They're giving justifications for those hard, the rules that they made with respect to host names, for example. So they say it is very difficult for us, boss, to interact with operating system. And then if you again change the host name, we may have to look into a lot of things in Docker. So bear with us. And there is a solution for it. So that's a Docker way, right? So that's how it works. And I gave you a few justifications, why, you don't try to change something, right? Instead, in Docker world, in container world, we try to create a new one rather than fixing something in the older one. I'll give you all these examples here. Why, Docker image is, very much helpful. So when I explain these things, if I give these reasons to you, you will say that, okay, I'll follow your things. Advantages of Docker image in build and deployment rule.
So how big is the class going to be? Like how many classes for Docker at least?
1 second. See this? Is there an issue in your mission? Don't spend time troubleshooting it. If you have any issue in the mission, don't spend time to troubleshoot it. Just throw the mission away, which has the issue, okay, and create a new one instantly. That is their policy. See, that's how that's what they recommend us. So I'll explain this, okay. So this summary, okay. Note down all your questions if you feel something is unanswered, okay. Even if I explain a few things you don't understand because you don't know the Docker. At the end, we'll have a separate class and I'll share all my expertise and experience and then try to answer your questions. Okay, done. I know, maybe see if I feel that somebody is not happy 100%, then I also don't feel good. So maybe, right, we have not covered, and then so this recent answer you may not maybe you're not satisfied with the answer, but wait, let's complete and then I'll give the answer for that, especially for this question. Okay, for Docker I take 9-10 classes.
For Jenkins, we have 2 more videos to be uploaded. 10 videos are there.
Latest videos are updated. Few
No, last 2 videos, I guess. Correct me, guys, if I'm wrong. I think one is certainly not available, but I think it's 2 actually. Last 2 videos.
Okay, everything I'll check. I mean that. So new developer is working on that. Okay, I'll check. Just give me some more time. Okay, Saturday, Sunday is there. I think by Tuesday or Monday. I think it's been very long now. I've been postponing it because this is something which I cannot do. I'll get it done maybe over the weekend for sure. I'll sit on top of the task. I'll follow with the developer and get it done.
Thank you.
Personally check all the sequences and everything. Okay, so Nagendra,
Yeah, yes, Nageshwar.
it was your question. Okay, why can't I change?
Yeah.
Got some justification. How much percent you are happy? Tell me with the discussion. You're still not convinced. Why Docker?
No, but that is built in, right? So we don't have any
Yeah,
options.
right.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it is okay. But in future, if they may have proceed with this new feature, no, that is good.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Again, if you go to Kubernetes, same kind of questions you will get in Kubernetes.
Yeah.
So we create something called pod. We will be having container running inside the pod. Now there is a big question, right? Why can't I create the containers directly? Why again there is a why container should be inside the pod? There are some advantages for that. So that's how they architected it. Will follow. Okay, but understanding the justification is very important. That's good.
Yes.
Okay, that's all from my side today. You want?
Nagesh.
I think nothing much to summarize today. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah,
Good night.
have a happy weekend. Bye.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Good night.